All right, so we have a lot of participants already, and soon we will reach our max capacity, so happy to be here. So welcome everybody. This is a pleasure to have you. This is Bria Institute's first webinar, part of the webinar series, The Future of Leadership. In light of the global pandemic, communications talk with Toyota and MasterCard. So I'm very excited, very honored to launch this series with two outstanding communication experts, Viviane Mansi from Toyota and Pedro Alves from MasterCard. So I will introduce the two, saying a little bit about their bios, but you also got their full bios in the invitation, so you have it there. But just to highlight, Viviane is the Communication Sustainability Regional Officer of Toyota in Latin America and Caribbean, and also the president of the Toyota Foundation in Brazil. She's been with Toyota since 2018, and this year she was promoted president of Toyota Foundation in Brazil. So congratulations, Viviane. It's great to see you shine so much. Viviane is also a professor. She has been teaching in the best business schools in Brazil. She is an author. She has published over 15 books already, and we'll be learning more about her books and her favorite topics to write about soon. She has also been awarded and recognized for being a great LinkedIn top voice and communicator in Brazil. Verge, Mega Brazil, ABRH. She is also a counselor at HSM Management Magazine. So thank you, Viviane, so much for being with us today. And also we have Pedro Alves. So Pedro is the communications director for MasterCard in Brazil and Southern Cone. Pedro joined MasterCard in September 2017. And prior to that, he was working in other companies, and we both had the pleasure of working together at GE. Actually, the three of us worked together at GE, so that's where I got to meet them and work with them. So Pedro was responsible for the digital communications and advertising for GE in Latin America, digitalizing the marketing strategy for the first B2B brand in Brazil. This is back in 2011. So a long time ago, he was already pioneer and innovator and making GE shine back then. In 2016, he also led GE activation sponsorship for the Rio Olympics, the 2016 Olympics and Paralympic Games. So Pedro worked in several companies before GE, Cadbury Adams, Suzano Holding, Duke Energy, and also has been receiving several awards in his career and a lot of recognition. So he has been nominated top 10 PR professional in Brazil by PR Scopen in 2019. And he has an amazing TEDx talk in from 2013. So it is an honor to have both of them here with me today. And not only because they're these amazing professionals that I just mentioned, they're wonderful human beings. And they are responsible for me being here talking to you live today. Because this all started back in GE when we worked together, and I was CEO of Brazil. And I had the privilege of having them convince me that digital was the way to go. So we were there December 2014, deciding that we needed to have another event to promote innovation in Brazil, but the leaders that were doing this in partnership could not agree on a date to go, to fly everybody to Brasilia, to have this event there. And then Pedro, very, simply put, just said, well, let's do it digitally. And everybody was going, what? Is it even possible? And back then, the two of them created the Innova Max, the Innova Plus, online, the digital version. And that was my first time doing something online. And it was amazing. It was a great experience. So 6.5 years later, here we are together again. And they are the superstars. So I am so honored and so proud to see you just beautifully and so grateful to share the floor with the two of you. So thank you so much for being here with me. I wanted to say a few words before I pass the word to both of them, just to say that, back in 2014, digital was emerging, but now with the pandemic, it's being accelerated, and no doubt about it. We were already leaving the fourth industrial revolution, And this revolution is changing and was already before the pandemic, changing the way we live, the way we work, the way we relate with each other. So the companies were already going digital and communication was already digital. So no news there. But what's different now? What's new now? I think in my perspective, and this is what we've been talking at Bria Institute a lot, the change has been accelerated tremendously. So we were already in a world of volatility, instability, uncertainty, and increased complexity. But this has now become much more evident and much more tangible for us to see. So we are going through a multidimensional crisis, and we know what to do in a crisis, right? We have some best practices. So I'm going to share with you here a slide with some of the best practices that we already know are very useful during a crisis. This was kindly done by Rosemary Ravinal. Rosemary is one of our speakers at the Bria Institute, and she also participated in a course that we launched in February called the CEO Meet and Master. And she shared this insights here with us today. So just for you to have the perspective of what we already know is necessary to do in terms of communication during a crisis. So act quickly, right? Acknowledge the situation, the problem. So be aware of what's there, the situation, no judgments, right? Enlist your employees for solutions and make people first. This is so important to put people at the top of your priority list, right? Come together with competitors and stick by your values. This is also a very important point that we stress a lot at Bria Institute, and I wanted to bring this to your attention today. Another very important aspect is in terms of business is to plan for the long term. Sometimes we get focused on the short term so much, but we have to have a balance between short term and long term. And we have to communicate over and over and over consistently. We have to be honest, we have to build trust, not blame, but share the price, and also show that we care always. So again, thank you, Rosemary Ravinal, for sharing with us these insights. Rosemary is conducting a boot camp tomorrow, and the ones who are interested can also find the link to her boot camp in the chat. We will be sharing that with you. And I wanted to go back here then to our speakers and say that this is the traditional way of thinking, and more so now than ever, we also believe in Bria Institute that we have to have a systemic approach to how we tackle crisis. So I wanted to share another slide here with you that explains a little bit about Bria. So Bria is a startup, and it's a startup being born as a benefit corporation based in the United States, soon to receive the certification from a B Corp standard. So this is our mission. We're being born B, as we say it. And our mission is to bridge the gap between innovation, practice, and purpose. We want to inspire leaders to really embrace their own unique leadership journey and change organizations and change the world. So it's a pleasure to have this conversation under this big umbrella. And also, with the systemic approach, we have learned at Bria that it's very important for us to understand that we live not only in a world of complexity, but we are complex adaptive systems ourselves, our organizations, and our teams, right? And there are certain properties that are very important when you think systemically. One of them is communication, is the exchange. So the exchange between the parts in a system is very important. So I will share with you another slide that I borrowed from Daniel Walls. I think he does a great work in terms of regeneration. And what I wanted to leave you with here from this slide is we always have the option, right, of choosing fear versus love or love versus fear. The narrative that we use is very important to make sure we go to a path that is more positive, that is of regeneration. So if we want to be co-creators of the future of this new reality that is unfolding, we must have a narrative that is of the interbeing, that is in collaboration with, right? That is sharing much more than is fearful. So this is just to give you some context to what they're going to be talking about, but I am not the speaker today, so this is for Pedro and Viviane to lead, and I am very, very happy then to ask Viviane to share her initial thoughts with us. So Viviane, please. Thank you very much for being with us.
Hi, Adriana. Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be part of this initiative. I was listening Adriana right now, and I miss a lot the time we had chance to work together, because something that I always remember is that Adriana has always a message of hope and always a way to look for the future in a very good way, because she really believes we are able to build better futures. So for me, it makes a lot of sense to talk about the future of leadership and how communication can help that on this moment, because in times of crisis, communication is even better. So Adriana show you something that it's very, very important. That's over communication, but it's not just over, but we need to do it consistently. So it's good to think that all companies around the world are thinking about how to overcome this moment that we are. And so kind of moments, we go deeply to understand our role. And for sure, when we talk about leadership, we need to think about the future, because our teams are not expecting us, someone to complain about what is coming or how hard it is to work on the issues today, but our ability to help them to be better in the future. So thinking on that, I like to remember our role and how communication can help us. In the past, and I had chance also to stay close to Pedro Victor for maybe 10 years. We always say that communication in the past was something just dedicated to a communication area. But on the last years, we started to see that the ability to be a good leader is connected to our ability to do good communication. But why we are seeing that? It's much more than something that just a good area of communication does, but something that all of us as leaders must pay attention, because our words can build the words. So what kind of world we are able to build in the future. So in this way, talking about language, talking about our ability to connect to others, to look face to face, and sometimes to address difficult conversation too. The conversation, the topic can be difficult, but the way we connect to others don't need to be. So it's our ability to connect to others that will help us to do something good for them, good for us. And of course, I think we never should forget that it could be better for the world too. So we are responsible for us, for our team, for our company, but also for something that create a legacy on the market. So it's important to take it into account. So today when I see someone talking about the role of leadership in the future, for sure, I can't disconnect communication from leadership. Talking back to language, is good to, I like to use a metaphor that is how we can see an organization like a machine, and how we could see that like a living systems. And when we look for a company like a machine, we are looking to a very good job, things well done, perfection in the models we use to do something. But of course, a machine just do something that is predictable. So it's prepared to deal with something that we already know. But now we are facing a time of a lot of uncertainty. So maybe another metaphor could help us that is much more like a living system. In this way, we are more able to connect to ourselves, to connect with our partners, and also to create some kind of a relationship that help our body to understand what is best to do. So we talk so much about collaboration, and now we had the opportunity to put it into practice, to talk about how we can connect with each other to build a stronger network to be able to overcome the problems that we are facing. So I like to remember how some leaders talk about the future, because the best way we can connect to each other is to help them to create good questions, to dream in a way that we can build better futures. So of course you are seeing that appreciative inquiry and social constructionism is something that is very important for me. So during all my life, dialogue had a very central, very core opportunity to my way to interact with others. And I see when leaders choose this way, this practice with their challenges, it's much more easier than when we decide to complain or to look around the problems we have. Of course, we can overcome problems, but it's much better when we can, appreciate best of what is, imagine what might be, design what should be, and of course, create what will be. And I like the way Adriana connected those things, because she practices that on the opportunities she has, at the same time as Victor do the same. So it's a pleasure to be part of that. I will do my comments concise to have time to listen to you and to dialogue about those kind of things, because I think the examples itself is much better than just my thoughts. So thank you, Adriana, for connecting those things. Well, I'm working for Toyota. Fortunately, I have chance to put it in practices in Toyota. What is quite funny, because you probably understand Toyota as a Kaizen company. So we look for the problem, we fix that, and we move on. So, but it's much nicer to see that the way Toyota looks to the problem is very well connected to the future. So what we see here in my screen is our Woven City, a project that we create to help people understand how good the future could be in a society based on hydrogen. So we need to build that. We need to make it possible. And the best way to make it possible is to help people believe that it's possible. So thank you, Adriana. And I'm here to wait the moment for questions. You need to open your microphone.
Now it's open. It's open.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Viviane. It's great to have you, and thank you for your remarks. Pedro, your turn for your initial remarks.
Sure. Thanks, Adriana. Thanks, Viviane. For me, it's a pleasure to be here today with all of you, talking about the future of communication from the perspective of the leadership skills, right? And to have Adriana as my mentor and someone that I always appreciate the thoughts and the perspective from a better world, and always position the people as the center of this revolution. For me, it's a pleasure to be here sharing some thoughts. And thank you, Adriana. Thank you, Vivi, for the warm welcoming. And talking about the future of leadership, and just complementing what Adriana has raised, and also Vivi, because I will not be repetitive, and I think we have time for our discussion through Q&As, and please send us message and your questions, and because it's going to be very interesting to have this conversation with all of you. I don't think there is like a simple answer for a complex moment that we are living and that we are facing now. And when we are analyzing from the comms perspective, it's not just about the hard skills that all the communicator has learned in the past, and to build message or to build a crisis plan in how to communicate with those different stakeholders, but we are talking about empathy. This is very, very, very important for us. And when we are talking about this scenario and this situation, because now it's a time where all the stakeholders are looking for us and checking what we are doing and the actions that we are taking, because we're gonna be evaluated by the actions that we are doing right now from all the stakeholders that are involved in this moment. So for us, it's very important to remind for the whole organization and the whole stakeholders that we have interactions, that we are living as we believe, as our values, as our philosophy. And this is where you guys are gonna be evaluated by your stakeholders as well, because in the end of the day, the comms teams are just like the facilitator and to prepare the leaders to take actions among this network, and this is another important role that we as executives and sit in those seats from the organization from all around the world. It's really to think, what's the role as a communicator that I have here, that I need to practice, I need to be in this time to be successful in the end of this journey, as we did the storm pass by, This is very important for us, because the way that we have been done comms and marketing in the tactics, everything, it's not just enough for the scenario that we are living today. So then, to show your vulnerability as a leader and acknowledge those vulnerabilities, it's very, very important for us to take the right actions based on the beliefs that your organization has, and as you operate all around the world. And connecting this to MasterCard, we have like a belief, which is doing well by doing good. And for us, it is very important, and what we are doing, the action that we are taking globally, it's very important for the whole network that our company, our payment technology company serves to the industry, and we have decided to invest $1,025 million in a joint effort with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to accelerate and to looking for therapy or vaccine for the COVID-19, because we believe there is no self-sustainable world with a sick world, and there's no way for our whole ecosystem to be prepared for growth or for development if we are not a commitment to looking for the treatment for the disease. And these are some thoughts that I think I would like to add to this conversation, so then we can get deep to the questions and have this chat with you, Adriana. Thank you very much for the time. You're in mute, Adri. Vivi too, you're in mute.
Okay, now I think I can talk. So thank you very much, Pedro. It's great to have your insights and to have you here with us. And we are getting a lot of good questions already from the audience. So I will start by sharing one from the audience, and then I will come back to my questions later. So one important question here, there's general, there's for both of you, and it's related to our topic, is, so this is how Toyota and MasterCard's leaders are positioning during the crisis. How is their communication with employees, clients, partners? What has changed? So who would like to go first?
Viviane, please.
Hi, guys. So, well, we are doing a lot of communication. So let me start with employees, because I understand that it's our primary responsibility is to make sure they are safe, to make sure they understand what is happening, and of course they are feeling the company care for them. So in this sense, we are doing a regular communication with them. That means we are communicating about what we are doing, what we expect, what is happening, or what we are planning for the future. We have a lot of protocols related to how come back to the work, because in June we will be back in Latin America in general, in Brazil especially. In Brazil, our date to come back will be June 22nd. So you can imagine during more than a month we need to have those guys connected with the company. And the good thing is, much more than communication, we organize through our department. Our leaders are taking the front of that. So our president talks a lot with employees in small groups. We are doing a lot of lives to make sure people understand that. And I'd like to give you a small detail that, thanks God, we have a social collaboration tool inside the company that is Yammer. So through Yammer is much easier to stay connected to them. And plus employees, we are talking to our partners, we are talking to our suppliers, especially because you can imagine we have more than 200 suppliers connected directly with our production. When we decided to halt a plant, all of them are impacted too. So we need a lot of collaboration and a lot of communication to make sure they understand what is happening and they can act accordingly and be part of this decision too. It's not a decision that we as Toyota take alone from others. With our clients, we are using a lot of digital channels to be close to them. So it's a moment to express our omotenashi, to express what we are doing, to make sure we have dealers open for service parts if they need something to do with this moment. And we are trying to do this all together. So we have regular communication, and much more than that, we express the way we care, all of them, and what we are doing to protect our future too.
Thank you, Vivi. Can you hear me? Okay.
Sure.
So that back to you, Pedro, and you mentioned being that all stakeholders are watching, right? That you have to really address all of them and be mindful that they are paying attention to what you do right now. So please answer the question.
Yeah, sure. Here at MasterCard in Brazil, we were like the second company that we found an employee with the COVID-19, and these were like breaking news all around the world. And we had to take actions, one of the first companies to take actions to care about the employees. And what we have done since from the day one, the moment zero, we have put everyone to work from home. And the office are open and we can go to the office, but we do not recommend in order to protect the employees, but also their families and their relatives too. And from the perspective of the employee communication, we are really empowering the president and the country manager for the division here in Brazil and Argentina and Chile as well, to have talks with employees on a regular basis. Before we have done this in once per quarter, but now we have done this twice a month, just to make sure that we are putting the main leader of the organization to talk about the main message that we need to communicate, to make sure the employees we're gonna feel comfortable in what they are doing, because we have changed everything from a day to another, and we need to make sure that we have not the productivity ongoing, but also the health, the psychology health, mental health of the employees in order. And we have put some benefits at the global level that the employees can have access different therapies and different programs through their mobile. This is one example, for example. And with the customers, we are doing more regular talk point with them in order to show that we care, and we are here to help and support them with the best insights and best services that we can. For the community, for example, MasterCard at global level has provided one of the solutions from one startup that we had acquired last year, which is Risk Recon, to do a virtual check for the healthcare companies that make transactions online for the online payments, to make sure that these merchants from the healthcare industry has access to services that we can provide to help them to do business well in this period. And some more other funds that the company has allocated for small and medium companies as well. And here in Brazil and the global level, we have decided that MasterCard, we're not gonna fire any employees due to COVID-19 until the end of the year. This is very important for us to preserve the productivity and to put people to work in what matter, which is help customers pass through the situation as best as possible. Adriana, you are mute.
Isa, okay, now I'm back. So it's amazing that you're able to keep the jobs and you're able to increase the communication, the contact that you're having from the senior leadership to the employees and customers and whatnot. But also you are in the process of offering some innovation to that is very important for this moment where we don't have the physical contact, right? The contactless payment was already on track to be launched, but I think it's also it's being accelerated by this crisis, right? Can you talk a little bit about that, please, Pedro?
For sure. At MasterCard, we are preparing the ecosystem from the past, I would say 5 years, to issue cards and to make sure that all the network from the 4 model party are ready to accept contactless payment. And we run like a research that we launched last week, which is shows the consumer behaviors, and 90% of the consumer has told us that they are now with the situation that we are living, that they are using contactless. This is something that's really very, very important for us at the global level. But here in Brazil, where we have like a lot of use of cash, like and people have decided 14% of the people that we have heard in this survey, they have decided to change from the cash to the contactless payment. This is helping them to avoid contact in the point of sales and less exposure to the contaminated surface in the point of sales, Adriana. And these are method of payment that are growing very fast in Latin America, and we are leading a conversation with all the issuers in the region to increase the amount of the payment that there's no need for password, and you just tap and go, and like helping you not being exposure to potential contaminated surface, you know.
So it's very timely that you have already this product ready to go, and you could accelerate it now and also help spread the disease, right? So this is very important.
Yeah, this is very important.
And Viviane, I'm sure you're also increasing communication, and you as well as Pedro you're already working on innovation, and the whole auto industry was going through a very big transformation, because it was also being disrupted by many different things before COVID and accelerated by COVID. So can you talk to us a little bit about the innovation that Toyota was already pursuing before the crisis and how it has accelerated with the crisis?
Mm-hmm. It's a good point, Adriana, because before COVID, well, I'm working for Toyota for less than 2 years. And when I was invited to be part of Toyota, I started to look around and understand what happens in the company. And what the executives at that time told me is that we were moving ourselves from an automotive company to a mobility company. And I did my homework and I started to ask for some friends who was in their mind when we talk about mobility. And the curiosity is that no automotive company. So when they think about mobility, the thoughts comes from banks, from other areas. So the challenge was quite clear for me. So it's a huge industry. We employ a lot of people around the world. Toyota itself is the number 1 in the world. So we are selling our products in almost 200 countries. So how to overcome it? Of course, you need a car, or we need to move yourself from a point to other. So now with COVID, we feel close to us what the importance of to be free and how to do this. So we already started in our company to address this future, to understand how we could move faster, how we could have faster decisions about the future, and how we could do it in all our areas of the business. And it was running. So one of the projects that we shared with our stakeholders in the beginning of this year in the US was regarding this project that I already mentioned, that is the Woven City. That's a city based on Japan for the next 2 years, to be able to showcase all initiatives and technologies that Toyota has to build this future based on hydrogen. So sustainability is in the core of our business. Innovation is in the core of our business. So this month we completely 15 million vehicles with electrification and a kind of new technology to address needs of people around the globe. In Latin America itself, we are talking about hybrids. In Europe, much more related to electrics itself. In Japan, we are talking about a different kind of technologies. So it's hybrid, it's electrical, it's big vehicles, buses, for example, moved by hydrogen. But we are on this path. And this year, at the end of last year, we started to deal with COVID. So what we are seeing that it accelerates the technology path of the company, because we are now in the challenge to do more with less. So my point on that, I like to see that with good and positive lens, that it's teaching a lot of things of the company. The first things that our global CEO Akio Toyota is talking a lot is that we are able to create a better future. We did it in the past when we deal with a lot of different crises. The Lehman crisis is one of that. The other is the earthquakes in Japan. So we were strong after crisis. So now we need to do whatever is needed to help our entire value chain to be able to overcome that. So all leadership are connected right now to think about the future and how we can do better things, faster things, cheap things, and protect our network at all.
So you were already going from the traditional, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so the auto industry was already going from one business model now to a different business model of mobility. So focusing on mobility, but focusing more on the person's ability to move around. So the individual became the center, not the car itself, but the individual and the ability to move. So this was accelerated, and now you have other elements there to look into, to put into the picture, to consider, right? I have a good question here from Jasmine Emery that I'm going to read, and then I'm going to pass the word to some of the participants who raise their hands so that they can make the questions themselves. But before we go there, let me read for you the question from Jasmine. So on a 1 to 10 scale, how would you assess the preparedness, your companies and their leaders and your leaders, to the crisis that they were facing? What have been the key communication challenges and learnings during the crisis? So Vivi, I think I'll start with you, and then Pedro, you can also comment on this.
Jasmine, thanks for the question. It's really important things to address, because communication is quite new for leaders. In the past, we didn't talk about that. So now I suppose we need to something is to look for different skills and put a note there, or a grade there, to say if it's close to 1 or close to 10. But the real life, when you put that in practice, it is much more difficult. In other way, I say, sometimes you know everything you need to do. All midi companies or big companies, they have crisis manual, for example. But on the daily life, some things is quite different because we depend on people to put that in practices. So imagine if a leadership is not well positioned and they feel they do not have information enough to share with their teams, they just don't do. So with that, I see that the challenge is to over communicate every single day, to be open for the team, to be available for the team. I'd like to mention something that Pedro mentioned before, is to deal with our vulnerabilities, because at this moment we do not have answers for our questions, but it's good to listen them and to stay available to help them to understand and create this future. I'm insisting a lot on this concept of create future, because if you just complain, probably you will have much more difficult to go back to work and put things on track, because now we are just mapping, checking what could be in the future. So leaders that can connect energy of the people and show and invite them and co-create a future probably will be better soon, faster than others.
Thank you, Vivi. Pedro, and I would add just one more element to the question that Jasmine put by another participant here who also said and reminded us, what are the challenges of communication now that we are all working from home, right? The home office aspect to it too. Pedro.
I would say for the Jasmine questions that acknowledge the situation, which is the situation we never faced before, the size of the situation, right? So then when the leaders saw for the first time that this could stop the country, or people could stay working from home with no endless day as we are facing right now, to acknowledge the situation, how big is the situation. I think this was a difficult point for the leaders, and from the communication perspective, when we have everyone working from home, it's how we're gonna engage employees to feel that they are part of a bigger organization and a bigger culture when they are working inside of their homes. And they are managing their family at the same time that they are trying to work. So these are things that you as a leader need to acknowledge, and really to think and reprioritize the things that you need to do, because you need to help your team. And this is not about just a comms team sending newsletters or scheduling calls. There is a sentence that I learned with Viviane that 7, 8 out of 10 employees wait that the message comes from the leader and not from the comms team. So how we can empower leaders to be better people manager, and together with HR, it's not a role just for comms, but a role that we need to join efforts and to reach and to prepare the leaders for the thing that we don't know how we're gonna evolve.
This is a great point, Pedro, because at Briyah Institute, Briyah Institute, we always say this, that we are all leaders and we have to embrace this journey, right, ourselves. So we cannot expect only the top people in the organizations to communicate messages. We have to be spreading the word and helping communicate the right message all the time and be leaders wherever we are, right?
Yeah.
So Viviane, you wanted to say something? We have many questions here. I want to offer the opportunity for Silvia Micelli to speak to us. So Vivi, would you like to come first, or should we open to Silvia now?
We can listen to her and I add my comment later.
Okay, so Silvia, please, you can make your question. Silvia, I think you're unmuted.
I think she's on mute.
So Isa, can you help us unmute Silvia, please? Yes, Silvia, please. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sure.
Oh, sorry about that. Hi, guys. Very nice to meet you, to listen to what you guys have to say. I'm grateful for this event, and I was actually worked with a people development for the past 10 years, and I'm very, very glad to see the interconnection of the areas. In my past times in big corporations, this used to be a very high challenge, to work together and not in silos, So I just heard now Pedro saying, asking Viviane, you were talking about how can HR and other areas help leaders, help professionals and especially leaders to be better communicators and to communicate and act from, based on real company values. And I would like to hear a little bit about you guys, about your experience in doing that in your own companies. How do you face that, and how what have been the results of that?
Pedro?
Vivi, go ahead. I think Vivi is first.
Okay, Vivi, go first.
Okay, Sylvia, thank you for your question. I think we are talking about another important thing is that we can count with all areas. HR has a strong opportunity on that, especially when HR works with communication, in the case of the company which has a good department established. But we must, it's now mandatory to, when we see a leader, when we are preparing a leader, to consider communication skill. And I will add my previous comment on here that communication is not the same as dialogue. So we need to prepare leaders to dialogue. So sometimes we need to listen more than talk. Sometimes we need to capture on the environment what is happening. Sometimes we need to pay attention on people because hard questions are not so easy on the table. So we need to guess that and to be sure we understand their needs. And we need to demonstrate that we care. So the way I care could be not exactly what the other understand by caring. So on these, based on that, we need to make sure people are really human, Sometimes it's not to follow a manual, sometimes it's not to do a course, sometimes it's to have opportunity daily to put that in practices. So being more precise in your comment is that we need to provide trainings for leaders and opportunities to make sure they are doing their jobs. I had some experiences of that in the past, but I will talk about something that happened in Votorantim Cimentos, my previous company, and now in Toyota. We have programs dedicated to leadership to make sure they are close to their employees. So we are talking to special communication coach. We are talking about communication mentoring. We are talking about a program that we can put C-level close to employees and make sure they are prepared for listening, not just to talk.
Thank you, Vivi. Pedro?
I think Vivi has covered everything, Adria. I think we can go for the next question, otherwise we don't have to. But
yeah, we are
going almost
so
twins.
fast. I wanted to test the temperature of the audience first. So let's, everybody get ready. We're going to have a survey, a quick poll here to see how the spirits are regarding the crisis here. So please take a look at the questions and choose your answer. So how are you feeling with the global pandemic crisis? Optimistic, grateful, cooperative, patient, resilient, frustrated, or fearful? I'll give you a couple minutes here, a couple seconds here to answer, please. So click on the answer that most reflects how you are feeling right now about the crisis. Okay? So let's see the answers. All right, so lots of cooperative, optimistic, resilient. I like it. I don't see so many people fearful. Some people are fearful and some people are patient, but that's great. All right, and this is important, you guys. No judgment here, just to acknowledge how we feel, and that's very important because if the quantum physicists are right and we are energy and we vibrate, we have to be aligned with the vibration that we are feeling. So we have to acknowledge that if we're fearful, that's how we're feeling, and then we have to, find a way to do something about it, but acknowledging it. So let's one more question, and then I'll pass on to you, Pedro, to comment. So now the second question for you to answer is, how do you think we should feel in order to drive positive change? So now it's more aspirational. In your opinion, how should we feel to drive change? Okay, so same feelings here: optimistic, grateful, cooperative, patient, resilient, resistant, frustrated, or fearful. So a couple seconds here for you to click on your answer. And voila. Answers? Cooperative winning again, optimistic second place, resilient next. All right. Not so many people grateful, nobody patient here. But that's great. Thank you so much for answering. Pedro, your floor is yours for comments.
Like I would propose for us like an exercise of empathy, like with these quick posts, we can for sure, your company, your organization has been done some survey to understand how employees are feeling, and this is very, very important because we know how privileged we are to be like 1 hour of the day discussing how will be like the future of the world, and what are the skills of the comms require for that, and how we should apply this in our day-to-day jobs. And looking to this survey, we need to first acknowledge that we are privileged. Second, putting ourselves in the shoes of others in terms of how actions that we're gonna take, and understand that there is a portion of the population that is fearful or frustrated. What we as a communicator need to do to embrace and to bring these employees to our side, or stakeholders to our side, and to see the world that we are seeing, or maybe understand if you need to take actions that is not so popular, like being fire people or redesign organization. This causes so many of these emotions in the people, and understanding that is very, very critical to you have to be successful in those comms activity, and how you need to prepare the leaders to take actions.
Thank you, Pedro. Vivi, your comments? Vivi,
Okay.
I think I like to see those kind of things. I like to see the amount of people who put optimist, because, well, I think our emotions in general drive the way we see things, drive our lens to see things. So in a way, we feel better. In a way, we can find some answers. We are more prepared to deal with the future. So it's good to see that people change, that can have consciousness about what they are feeling and what could be. So, and we can connect that with the role of leadership, how we are leading these fight in our companies in a way to help people see that we can be better in the future and overcome all of this.
Thank you, Vivi. So we have a final polling that I wanted to still do before we go. So let's get ready to answer one more question, and then we'll have final remarks and unfortunately have to close. But here it is. In order to turn this crisis into opportunity and positive change, what is the good practice you believe is most important to apply right now? Is it prioritization, discipline to drive focus, courage to take risk, collaboration through networks, relaxation and mindfulness, aligning to a higher purpose? So get ready, pick your answers, and let's see the results. So collaboration through networks with 28%, but also a winning here, aligning to a higher purpose. I love that. So with that, I will let Pedro and Viviane say their final remarks, and then I'll close. So please, Viviane, you first. Aligning to a higher purpose. That's great, huh?
That's great. That's great. So it shows that we should see the forest instead to see the trees. So in a way, we can talk about the long range. We can see more answers than when we see just something that will happen tomorrow. Of course, we must do what is happening now to make sure we have a company to protect in the future. But at the end of the day, a good company, or who will overcome that better, is thinking in both ways together. We are not going far from our purpose. We are not going far from our values. So I could say, sometimes we have mission, vision, values, and it means anything. It's just on the wall. We need to put that in practice. So crises are great moments to put our values in practice. And sometimes if we do not have answers, probably if we go back and to look what brings us up until here, probably we have some kind of answers there.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Pedro, your comments.
Everyone, it was a pleasure to be here with you today and sharing the thoughts. And for sure, we have received a lot of questions. And Viviane and I have the commitment now to read and try to do some content together with Adriana to answer those. But for the final thoughts and complementing what Vivi has just mentioned, I would suggesting for us to try to understand inside of the ecosystem of the organization, who are the people that are not detractors inside of the organization this time, that are required us to change behaviors, change design organizations that can help us to be those force that that the company needs for change. You know, this is very, very important for us, because those are the people that probably has like influence in an indirect way that you guys can help the decisions and the actions that you need to take. Thank you very much, Viviane. Thank you very much, Adriana.
Thank you. And this is a perfect comment to end here. I wanted to invite everybody to look at Bria's site and take a look at our CEO Meet and Master program. This is a program that we created to inspire people, to inspire leaders. And if you look at the picture here in the center, one of the panels was talking exactly about what Pedro just described, how to engage all the different stakeholders and to find out who could be supporting you in your strategy, identifying those who might be against you, but also seeing how to communicate to the different stakeholders in a nice way. It's very important to align with purpose, so we do that at the CEO Meet and Master, and it's going to be a pleasure for us to have you join us. And for those participating in this webinar, you will be getting a special price for doing this with us. So we'll be sharing here the link to click and to register with us with this special price. And we'll be having another webinar in 2 weeks. And hopefully we'll continue the conversation also online. So don't worry if your question was not answered now. We will, as Pedro said, discuss them amongst ourselves and make sure you get your answer. We will be posting more in Bria's social media channels. And we look forward to seeing you again in the next webinar of our series, The Future of Leadership. Thank you so much, Pedro. Thank you so much, Viviane. It was an immense pleasure to have you here and a great honor. It's great to see you shine. Keep doing this great work, both at MasterCard and Toyota and at Bria. So you're always welcome at Bria, and I'm very happy to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, Adriana. Thank you, Pedro. It's always a pleasure to stay with